Ethan Vale, a billionaire with a steely gaze and a cold mind, was used to waking up in the silence of his Manhattan penthouse. The glass of the panoramic windows reflected the night lights of the city, and looking down, he felt like the master of the world. But that morning, instead of the usual call from his assistant, he received a message that made his heart stop. There were only a few words on the smartphone screen. "Your empire is built on lies. Tomorrow the world will know." Ethan stared at the line for a long time, as if trying to figure out whether this was a stupid joke or the beginning of the end. His hand involuntarily squeezed the phone so hard that his fingers turned white. His first impulse was to call his partner, Jonathan, with whom they had raised the corporation from the ruins. But the phone was silent. Then, to lawyers, advisors, even his ex-wife, who always found a way to sense when clouds were gathering over him. No one answered. The anxiety he had always hidden under a mask of confidence now began to break through. Ethan paced the room like a lion in a cage. Who dared? He whispered to himself. His corporation, Vale Industries, was a symbol of power and success. It controlled energy, real estate, technology. But Ethan knew, more shadows than light hid within those walls. The evening of that day was a blow. The first news channels reported on the investigation by federal authorities. Vale Industries is suspected of large-scale fraud, corruption connections, and document falsification. The screens flashed with his face, and the announcers repeated the phrase, "An empire built on lies." He stood in front of the mirror in the darkened bathroom. His eyes, usually filled with cold confidence, now seemed tired and lost. "It's not me," he whispered, as if trying to convince himself. "It's not me." And for the first time in years, Ethan Vale felt fear. The next morning, Ethan turned on all the screens in the crisis room. The noise of the markets, the charts, the news feeds. The PR team was talking like water. "We're going to break the wave, statements, interviews, refutations, a focus on your charitable programs." The lawyers were suggesting that they distance themselves from the operational activities. "Mr. While, for the duration of the review you are an honorary chairman, without a signature." He nodded mechanically, but every word was piercing. It wasn't fear that sank inside him, but alienation. Everything he had created suddenly spoke in foreign voices. "Find Jonathan," he said dryly. "I want to see him." Jonathan finally answered at 3 in the afternoon, a meeting in a glass conference room overlooking the Hudson. His smile was thin as silk, his eyes dry. "We'll get through this," he said, as if encouraging an old friend. "But we need scapegoats. A few directors, a couple of accountants. Let's take the blame for over-enthusiasm. You know how this theater works." Theater. Ethan felt something snap inside him. "You signed the contracts, John. You negotiated." "On your instructions," he replied, and looked away from the water. "Always on your instructions." By evening, as if on order, an exposé had emerged. Offshore trusts, shell contractors, fake carbon certificates. The headlines screamed, "Vale Industries, green sign, black core." Among the documents were copies of emails with the name I.V. under the terms of the agreement. His name, his initials, signatures he might have seen, at night, on the fly, when numbers replaced faces. The board of directors met at night. A mass of suits, muffled voices, the smell of coffee that smelled of ashes. The vote was quick. Temporary suspension. Public statement. In the morning. At the same moment, financial regulators froze the holding company's accounts. The bankers who had spoken to him as "you" yesterday and laughed at his jokes, today responded with broken phrases. "We love you, but the risks. We can't do anything." "Dad." The soft voice of his daughter Maya on FaceTime cut through the fog. "They showed the news at school. Are you really bad?" He looked at his face in the small window, pale and empty. "I made mistakes, the son. But I'm fighting." "Mom says it takes time." There was an unchildish fatigue in her voice. "Just be honest." At midnight, there was a knock on the door of their penthouse. The agent, with cold eyes, filed a search warrant. Black gloves touched his books, his letters, his habits. Among the boxes of documents, Ethan could see the imprints of his life, sorted into folders, deals, donors, committees. The watch buckle on his wrist was clenched. He had time to feel the time running out, and how he was being buried under the paper. The next day, Jonathan appeared on the screen against the background of the flag. He had cooperated with the investigation, spoke of systemic failures, a culture of silence, pressure from above. Ethan's name fell like a blade. He knew, Jonathan said. Maybe not the details, but he knew the goal. On the stock exchange, stocks were falling so rapidly that even the numbers seemed frightened. A crowd had gathered outside the office, former employees, activists, demanding answers. Someone had thrown a rock through the window, and the cracked pane had blossomed into a web, a map of his empire, each line leading to a center that refused to see the truth. The city had disappeared in the evening, a flicker of light. Part of the power grid had gone down. Reporters, with a predatory glint, linked the outage to the experimental substations of the Vale grid. Easy savings, heavy consequences, read the subtext. Ethan stood on the balcony and watched the darkness roll down the blocks. This darkness belonged neither to the night nor to the city. It belonged to him. He thought that for the first time in years, he didn't understand where his will ended and the machine he had built began. I'm no longer in control, he whispered into the darkness. It controls me. A siren wailed from below. His head pounded. Lies, signatures, silence. And somewhere between these knocks, the most terrible thing fell: hope. He had received a call from an unknown number at 3 a.m, when his sleep had seemed like a brief interruption. Vale? The woman's voice was tired but even. My name is Lena Morales. You hate me, I know. You're a journalist, he said dully. Her stories had once irritated him. I'm more than a journalist. I have something for you. Something that no headline could fit. Meet me at the old library on 53rd in an hour. Just bring yourself. The old library smelled of dust and silence. Lena was waiting in the reading room, hooded, with a backpack. She tossed a small metal key and a black flash drive onto his desk. Sequoia. Does the word mean anything? No, not really. It's the name of an internal server that doesn't officially exist. It was created when you bought the third power company 10 years ago. Targeted consultations passed through it. Political contributions, project amendments, contractual gifts. Everything was neat. Almost beautiful. You came to destroy me? I came to destroy people who stand above people like you, she said, and her eyes flashed with rage. You built an empire, Vale, but others built above you. He turned on the laptop. Sequoia demanded a key and password. Lena put another thing on the table, an old, darkened dictaphone. This is from your father, she whispered. His assistant contacted me before he died. He says his father knew that one day everything would fall apart. The recording was his voice. Ethan pressed play. The voice he hadn't heard in years was close, almost painfully close. Son, if you're listening to this, you're on the edge. Remember how I said there are no safe shortcuts? Sequoia is my fault and your legacy. It will give you answers, but it will take your peace. The names are there. The price of every door we've opened. The password was hidden in the date of a family photo, in laughter, in extraneous trifles, in those things that make a person human. Ethan entered the key. The server opened. A network of shell companies, poetically named foundations, consultants, whose work was measured by the laws that passed committees on the right day. At the center was the Orion Trust, appearing as a stabilization fund for infrastructure risks. Above Orion hung the name of a senator who had already become a legend from journalistic stories as a symbol of effective reforms. Next to it was Jonathan's name. Do you think I came to save you? Lena spoke quietly, but every word was a scalpel. No, I came to show you that you have a choice. For the first time in years, you signed without reading. You believed that the system was playing you. But the system was playing you. If you open this, everyone will burn. And you too. Why me? Because everyone else has already chosen. They chose silence or quiet positions. And you haven't decided yet what you want to be, a person or a myth about yourself. Ethan sat, feeling the cold truth slowly creep under his skin. He was guilty not only of what he had done, but also of what he didn't want to see. His father's voice, like a ghost, whispered about the price. Sequoia pulsed with files that glowed with a deadly attractive light. If you open this now, you'll be crushed, Lena said. But if you don't open it, you'll forever be a stranger in your own life. He nodded. At the end of the list, a file called Gabriel appeared. The document contained a note from his father. If it comes to war, tell the people the truth. And start with yourself. This time, Ethan didn't look away. For the first time, he chose to look. The plan was simple and deadly. Lena helped assemble the Sequoia papers into 2 packages, one for prosecutors, the other for publication through an independent network of editors. The orchestra was to play at the precise moment when no one's hands could press cancel. But the first step was a confession, not in a church, but where he lied most, in public. He showed up at a charity gala that had yet to be canceled. A hall with crystal chandeliers and photographers firing flashes like machine guns. Ethan knew that among the guests was Jonathan, the senator, those who were used to looking at him with a smile on the thin line between friendship and calculation. He hid a tiny recording device under his tunic. On his watch was a publication timer. "You came to say goodbye to the stage?" Jonathan raised his glass. "You know, sometimes it's better to go out in style." "It's beautiful. It's on gravestones," Ethan replied, taking a step closer. "Tell me, when exactly did you decide that my name was your insurance policy?" "When you realized that money loves silence," Jonathan smiled. "The difference between us is that I don't romanticize evil. I just count." Ethan felt something hot rise inside him. "Then count it," he whispered. "How much does a children's hospital cost when its generators start? How much does a farm die without electricity? How much are the signatures I put up as I passed by worth?" He stepped onto the stage uninvited. The music stopped. The cameras rolled. "My name is Ethan Vale," he began, and there was no pitiful defense in his voice, only a tired clarity. "I came not to defend myself. I came to tell the truth. I ran a company where lying was called optimization and bribery was called lobbying. I let the system use my name as a shield. Today that shield is breaking. You'll find the documents on my website. They will destroy me, and maybe save you." The hall echoed as if struck by lightning. Jonathan started toward the exit, but the agents were already waiting in the hallway. Lena had made a deal with the prosecutors. Their group had received the package a minute before publication. The senator jumped off the stage, trying not to look at anyone. "You signed your sentence," Jonathan hissed as he was led away. "I signed my beginning," Ethan replied. The night turned into a storm. Reporters chased like waves after a stone. Lawyers called non-stop, offering bridges that were already burning. The prosecutor, a woman with a look that held neither hatred nor sympathy, said simply, "You give us your testimony, you give us your keys, you cooperate. No guarantees except the law." "I'm not asking for guarantees," he replied. "I'm asking for a chance to do the right thing." The morning dawned without triumph. His broker had sent a message that sounded like an obituary. Personal assets under arrest, positions under ban, passports confiscated. He stood in an empty apartment where only footsteps and memory could be heard. On the kitchen table was a note from Maya, written in a child's hand. "If it's honest, then it's right. I love you. M." All or nothing turned out to be not a shot, but a split. Ethan felt the old everything recede like water from a shore. The shore remained. And on it, he, stubborn, angry, guilty, alive. The trials dragged on for months. The Sequoia papers were scattered like seeds sprouting under the domes of committees, in prosecutors' offices, in editorial offices. The senator resigned for personal reasons. Jonathan was sentenced to a term that looked like the arithmetic of karma. Many executives found themselves somewhere calmer, in universities, in foundations, on advisory boards, and wore the shame like an invisible badge. Ethan was sentenced to a ban on holding executive positions, fines that ate up the remnants of his personal wealth, probation, and thousands of hours of community service. "For a man of your means, that's mercy," the judge said without a shadow of irony. He nodded. "Mercy is when you're left with a choice, even a late one." He worked in a night shelter where the lights hummed softly, as if apologizing for the darkness. I listened to people who lost everything without making headlines. A driver with 2 jobs and no insurance. A nurse who was fired for protesting. A guy who believed in a startup and went bankrupt. They didn't know who he was, or they pretended not to. One day, a man with broken arms asked, "You used to wear a different suit, right?" "I did," Ethan said, "and it was heavy." He and Maya were eating pizza on plastic plates in the park. She talked about school theater and how she played the role of a girl lost in the city. "Did you find your way?" he asked. "Yes. It was where I stopped running," she said, and smiled. Ethan had started a small foundation that didn't bear his name. The foundation didn't promise to change the world. He paid for generators in critical facilities, for transparent audits of local networks, for training technicians that no one listened to. Every report was published online in real time. No backroom staff, no consultants. Every mistake was signed by the person responsible, including his. One evening, Lena came into the shelter. She put coffee on the table. "You've become different," she said without pathos. "I've become who I was supposed to be," he replied. "Don't you regret it? Regret is a currency that buys nothing. I work for cash, time and truth." They went outside. The sky was low, the city was tired, but the light held. Somewhere in the distance, a substation turned on, a steady hum that resembled a pulse. Ethan thought about a question that had once seemed rhetorical, but now unnecessary, because the answer had changed not in the words, but in the way he breathed. Can you be rich and honest? You can be honest, and then wealth, if it comes, will be not a mask, but a tool. Which is more important, truth or success? If success cannot withstand truth, then it is not success, but a decoration. Can you redeem the past? No, but you can pay for it while you live, and build a future so that you don't have to redeem it later. As they turned back, he paused for a moment and looked up. Stars shone between the clouds, not as decoration, but as a reminder that true light does not need permission. He smiled to himself, feeling something simple and stubbornly taking hold inside. "You know," he said to Lenny, "my empire burned down. And I know. Because empire is what you have," she replied. "And truth is who you are." They went back inside, and the door to the shelter closed softly. The city breathed. The light held. Ethan carried a tray of hot soup like a flag that no one could ever replace.